here, and today we are doing a Dorado Map guide. We're going to go ahead and go through the map. We'll go through this somewhat from an attacker's perspective, though we'll definitely talk about defenders as well. And we're going to be starting each point with the lanes. It's really important, if you took nothing else out of these map guides, to understand the lanes, to understand that there's generally 3 of them available in Overwatch. If you're battering your head into a wall, can't make something done, usually it's you not understanding where a second or third lane is, or how to properly use them, what they're used for in general. So we see here, these are our 3 primary lanes for the first half of first point here. And generally what you'll run into for first point here, the first half of it is going to be teams understand, at least teams that aren't really, fully dive teams are going to understand that the prime, the most powerful hold, the general hold that they're looking to make is this one right here. This one, this choke is a powerful choke. They like that. Okay, it's great that they like that. Fine. That said, there are a couple other options. While they'll generally hold back here, there are a couple other options. And those other options are going to be, hey, there is the potential of a spawn hold, that sort of thing. There's the potential of turtling in here for a brawly team to not let cart move. Those are some things we'd want to be aware of. We just poke those out by taking sides, try to poke it out from here as best we can, try to get someone out here from spawn to poke that out, no big deal. But the other thing that's going to happen is teams that have some poke aspects to them are going to recognize that even if they don't really plan seriously to take the engage until this choke that's strong, if they get a big enough advantage, they're happy to take the fight early. And sometimes that'll happen. So what you'll see is you will see the defending team is going to set up some amount of control, some amount of poke aspects back here. Maybe that's a Zen, an Ana, maybe you have, something to go with that. And then potentially they're going to want to control over here as well. So that's going to give them nice split, nice 2 different angles that they're going to control there. And then if they're running dive, they might have flankers, dive tanks up here, potentially up here as well for their additional control. So the attackers have to do something about that. They could try to go, oh yeah, we'll just go ahead and turtle our way through. We'll just suck it up and push like this. Card will get to here. We'll probably be able to do it. Yeah, on ladder you probably will, and you can do that, but I'm actually going to recommend something different. Even though you could go, we'll push it up here, we'll just sort of rotate our tank resources to get the cart up, and eventually the defenders will fall back from here and here to go control this choke. It generally actually works better as your attacking team to go ahead and push the cart to here, sure. Let's actually do that in blue. To push the cart to here, sure. And then swap over and go ahead. And now that we've got the cart to here, let's maybe leave a flanker, maybe leave someone fast like Ball, Tracer, Winston, whatever on cart to keep pushing it. But let's actually send our core, our backline, up to go do this. Because this will clear out any defending poke aspects, any defending Kree, Torb, Ash, Hanzo, anything like that, that was Sigma that was trying to hold here, and we'll either force them back to go join their team so they're less threatening, or we'll just force them to drop and go hold that choke. And once you've done this, it's much, much easier for you to go, hey, now we as the attackers have control of this. We have an even fight rather than a disadvantaged fight against these guys, and maybe we've also sent our flankers up around here to go challenge you from behind, and then you guys just lose. We don't necessarily expect to actually wipe you. What we do expect you to do is go ahead and retreat back into the second half of first point there. And that might feel like, oh, but that's too long, this takes too long. It really doesn't take very long to rotate your backline up here to do this. In most situations, that'll make sense. Obviously, don't rotate a Briggs and backline into a full brawl team that's holding here. I don't need to tell you that, but it's actually going to set you up for taking the second point pretty well as well. So we like to do that. And the reason that we run into that, the reason that we do that, is that there's still a second point or a second half of this point, or the choke itself, that we have to deal with if we are attacking. So as we look at second point here, we see a couple important things. And for those of you that have comments, you can absolutely throw them up in chat. As you know, I'll circle back to them sort of once I'm done with the presentation here. If you want to interrupt me, get in here right now, or at some other time, you can do that with a super chat. I am bribable. And if you're enjoying the content, please do like a drop a like and consider subscribing over there. Okay, so then we get into the second half of point A, and this is important. We go, hey, our lanes, well, that's the cart's lane. That's pretty obvious. Nothing too surprising there. We get into, okay, what's another lane here? Well, that goes up there, circles back, and then we've got something resembling that. Maybe you go into third, maybe you come in like this, maybe you go into third, doesn't really matter. And then again, we have our third lane here, which is going to come through like this and is going to go through mini here. It can turn in like that, can turn in like that, or can go on into third and circle back. Doesn't really matter to us. But these are the three lanes, and they do some pretty important things for us. Okay, if we have three lanes, that's going to be much easier to break than just pushing blue. As you've probably noticed, if you just push blue, you're going to run into trouble. You're going to run into trouble against a competent defending team. This can actually be a very hard point to break, because what will happen is you will potentially have a tank that understands that they can go and almost infinitely contest right here. Maybe it's a Winston, maybe it's a Reinhardt, maybe it's an Orisa. It doesn't really matter. They can almost infinitely touch and leave and touch and leave, and you can't really contest them from mid. Can't really contest them from there either. You can contest a little bit from over there, but you can't really contest them if they do that. And if they really get into trouble, they can fall back, or if the cart moves a little bit, they can fall back, and they've still got pretty good cover against you. Then you've got the issue of a good defending team is going to understand the importance of controlling this lane over here, and they're going to have some sort of poke aspect, an Ashe, a Hanzo, Zen, something like that over here, or over here, or in the case of some heroes, they might put someone up here, because this is just a dominant position right here. This just gives them such good sight lines in terms of they can control the choke, they can threaten this that attackers might like to attack with, they can threaten this down here, makes this lane hard for attackers to rotate across and into because they have a sight line on it. A Widow here is pretty darn dominant, so that's a bit of a problem. So we've got a couple ways to solve that and to solve the defenders really having a pretty good hold on this choke here. And you might be thinking, wait, there's three lanes, Temporal. You said that there's three lanes. What about this here? In fact, this lane should be great. Attackers have it. They're coming through high ground. It's really great. Like, they're coming in at a high ground advantage. It should be easy to push into this. Well, not really. It's so narrow what you're pushing through here, and then you push into a wider space, which means, again, your opponents get to funnel damage into it while having angles themselves. So it's okay, but it really tends to be more of a flanker route. A ball, a tracer, something forces their way through here to get into here, then maybe to work their way back. So what does actually happen? Well, what does actually happen to break this point is, remember that backline? Let's say we have a backline of, I don't know, these heroes that got themselves to here. Maybe they even brought an Ashe with them. They're going to go, hey, assuming that we're not running hard into a brawl team, we can send something like our flankers along this line to clear the opposing team's poke aspect. We can send them in through here. We can send something like our brawl aspect or our core aspect. And again, if this was a full brawl team, no problem. Full brawl team up here, drops, runs right in here, and they get to go ahead and push up this lane. And then something like an Ashe, maybe a Hanzo, maybe a Zen, whatever, gets to peek here. Okay, well, that helps. Now we are in a situation where we've gotten something kind of bulky, something kind of brawly in here with the short sight lines that they're able to rotate up through the danger of these poke aspects where they're not a serious threat here, and that's a big deal. We've potentially been able to leave something behind here that's relatively protected that can still threaten and challenge the point, and we've sent our own flankers or whatever we had up here to go contest these things. Obviously, if you don't have flankers, say you're running a full brawl comp, okay, well, we covered that. It's much, much easier to drop your brawl comp here, go like this, go through and flip the map and clear them, than it is to try to force your way through this here. So please don't try to just force your way through this. If your team is struggling on this choke in ladder, you are not going to be able to get them to do necessarily the full shebang that I'm explaining here, but you yourself, if you're a flanker, can go take left. You yourself, if you're a poke hero, can go take this. You yourself, if you're a support, can maybe go, hey, Anna, come this way, and you're Brig, and maybe you get your McCree too, and you drop and go take this. These are things that you can do. They help in organized play, and they're absolutely going to help you in ladder, even if it's just one or two additional people who understand them there. So that's generally what you're going to do to break this. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't point out that, as you probably saw initially, I did draw some different lanes that were relevant, we'll say, or a shortcut on a lane, and that was actually this guy right here. This is very powerful. Just like this is very powerful for a poke hero that can use it, like Widow, this is very powerful for heroes that can go over it. Genshis, Winstons, Pharahs, whatever you want to send back here, Hanzos, anything you want to send back here, then gets access to this, which either they can use themselves, and you can just dominate a defending team from back here if you want to set something up back here. Yes, you're unsupported. Yes, you're sending a Hanzo back here alone, for example, but you can just dominate a team. Or you can pretty easily send a Genji, a Winston, something to go contest this back here, and it's going to be hard for a team that's properly set up protecting this choke and the 3 lanes and trying not to let people in the lane, trying to be ready to take their soft engage right here, not let them in here, trying not to let them in here. It's going to be very hard for them to properly peel that. So those are sort of the things you want to understand to attack first point here. Cool. So let's move on to second point. And second point, no big surprise, we're going to have 3 lanes again. That's how most points on most of Overwatch are designed. So we rotate on through here. That's the cart's path. That's pretty standard. No big surprise there. We have the secondary path, which is going to take us roughly like this. We'll go like this for now. And then we have the third path, which is going to take us somewhere along the lines of this. And you might go through here and double back. You might go through here and go high ground. You might go through here and come out here. That's fine. These are roughly your 3 lanes, specifically for attacking second, and we're really talking about the second half of second. So what else is relevant here? Well, we didn't draw the shortcut, or not the shortcut, but effectively the relevant crossover, which is the high ground on church crossover, as well as this sort of turning into another lane of sorts. You can consider it a continuation of this lane here, but it really is its own lane, and it becomes that 4-second. So we look at this, we have to understand, okay, if we're attacking, how does this work? Or if we're defending, how does this work? Well, how this works is the first serious fight tends not to happen until the cart, the fight, whatever, gets around here-ish. And that's because this is where the defenders are happy enough to go, we have a huge high ground advantage. If the attackers don't take this high ground from us in some way, it is very hard for us to lose. Not as hard as it is for them to lose the fight back there in the second half of second, but it is hard for them to lose this fight when they have this massive high ground advantage. They can drop dive tanks down and have them pop back up to keep slowing the cart. They can have Ashes drop TNTs from here, all sorts of good stuff, and it's a bit of a pain for the attackers to access. So actually winning is about accessing this high ground. It's not about, oh, we're just going to brute force the cart through here. It's possible to do that, but that's generally not the best move. What this is instead going to be about is sending someone through this way. We want to go ahead and send someone or multiple people through this way to get here and go, hey, we can send 3 people this way, 1 person this way, 6 people this way, 5 people this way, but once we send people out this way, much better to fight over control of this and then go, hey, we've got this, we've fought in here, and we can beat this. And then once the attackers have this, it's very easy for them to get the cart the rest of the way over to here, once they've gotten control of this right here. Unfortunately, this lane isn't too relevant. This last lane here, which we can also show on Stat Banana, is this lane through here. It's not completely irrelevant, but it's not really all that relevant because this space here, this main lane, is, while yes, the yellow lane influences the blue lane here, the purple up here has so much more influence over the blue lane, over pushing the cart, than yellow does, and yellow also has very little influence over the pink lane here, the red lane here, the purple lane, it's not really a purple, the reddish lane here. So this one, you know, you can do stuff. You can take advantage of people who are playing this mid lane, who are going, hey, we're going to default through mid here. You can take advantage of people with that, with your flankers through this lane. But most of the time, you're better off sending anyone. If you're playing Tracer, you might go through here and knock people off the high ground, and that lets your team win the default lane if they're playing Silly there down there. If you're playing Soldier, you could do the same thing. If you're playing McCree, it's going to take you forever, but you're still going to do the same thing. You're still going to do the same thing and fight them and try to take them out here, try to take them out here from this different angle. Yes, you can do this with dive heroes where you go, oh, no, 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 we're going to go main because we can just jump our Winston up. We can just jump our Genji up. We can just jump our Echo up. Still generally not the only direction you want to hit them from. You're also going to want some threat from this direction. Again, Tracer, Ashe, Hanzo, Mercy, Zen, whatever, not Mercy, Zen, McCree, whatever it's going to be, some threat from this direction is going to make winning this, which is the power position for the first half of second, way, way easier. Other things that we should know for this point, other than, hey, it really is a fight over this, and the fight over church gets you control of this, is that you can actually do this little path over here. You can jump across this, walk across this, and then get yourself out here, or even wall climb up here with like a Genji, a Hanzo, something like that, and threaten from up here. And those are very powerful as well. Okay, then we get on to... There we go. Then we get on to the second half of second point. And this is brutal. If the defending team understands the value of high ground and the attacking team doesn't, it's going to be over. You're not finishing this map. But as we go through the last half of second here, we've of course got this lane. Sure, that makes sense. We've of course got this lane. And we could be like, oh yeah, we've got something resembling this lane as well. And maybe we want to loop that back through. Maybe we want to loop this one through. Doesn't really... Oh, that's not the color I want. Maybe we want to loop this back through. Doesn't really matter. And then, obviously, this can't be ignored right here. This right here, this sort of fourth lane we'll call it, but really it's you'd call it a third lane. Yellow has some relevance, again, not super, super relevant. This is really middle right here, this black here. Blue is just not a real push. You cannot go, oh, we're going to stack 6 people on cart, or we're going to put 3 people on cart. We're going to come through main and win this as the attacking team if the defenders have any ability to position people up over here and up over here. You're just pushing into a box of getting destroyed. It's just not going to happen. They can put a Reinhardt down here, an Orisa down here, have a Winston touch it, have a Ball touch it, have a D.Va touch it, and go back up. You're just going to get shredded in the open. There isn't enough cover in... Even with the cart, there's just not enough cover in this box of doom that you're going to get eliminated in. So what do? Well, as attackers, you have to understand that if you get wiped, your respawn comes from there. The high ground that you had easier access to when you were attacking the first half of second was this high ground over here, and that's still true as you attack into the second half of second. You have easier access to this high ground, so this is generally what you're going to use. If you get control of this, now it's a somewhat fair fight of both of you have control of a high ground, especially if you can get rid of the person that'll likely be tucked back there. Both of you have some level of control of this high ground, and if there is someone tucked back there, well, they shouldn't be able to fight your team too hard who's sending people here. Now, relevant things are you can, as the attacking team, of course, also rotate your team, walk it down mid here after, maybe this will make sense the first time after you've pushed the cart up to here and now you're backing out. You can absolutely rotate yourself through here and go take high ground like this. That is perfectly fine to do. That is perfectly valid. You'll catch some teams off guard like this. This makes sense if your team was just over there pushing cart in the first place as well, and now you have control of this high ground. Can you do both? Yes, you can potentially do both as well to try to get control of both high grounds. But more often, after a wipe, after a respawn, your attacking team is going to come up through here, and then you're going to decide, okay, how are we going to use any sort of flankers, any sort of flank aspects, dive tanks, whatever that we have, to go, how do we win this? We come up with, again, a rotation that puts us through here in some way. Defending team is likely to have people set up over here, and we don't like that, so we need to find some way to deal with them. And that can be we send a flanker of sorts through here to go contest this as we open this angle, so this is contested as we challenge. We can try to rotate a brawl team across here all the way to go clear this, but that's not amazing. Or we can send a flanker down through here. This actually has very good cover if you want to send someone through here to then be able to get over here, challenge this, push this person off because they have nowhere to go, and now you've established full control of this side, which will work very well for your team. And if you want to send a whole brawl comp down through this black lane down here as well, that is perfectly doable to go get control of this. But as you can see here, that puts you in a situation where, hey, we're now pretty good. We have this even fight where we have this lane, we have this high ground, they have that high ground. We can win that. Okay, great. If we did more to get to contest them over there, fine. But that's really what we are looking at. In terms of the power positions on this point, what we're really looking at is this is the position that absolutely matters for the beginning of second point, like this right here, and both teams should know it. For second point, it's really both of the high grounds. You get a little bit of something special over here where you just have such good sightline access. If they come mid, if they come there, if they try to come there, you can duck down a little and it's good. That's why sending someone specifically around to contest this can be pretty good. And as you can see here, the other defending lane doesn't really have a good sight line on someone who's taking that flank route beneath. They can see a little bit of it, they can see portions of it, but overall, it's got some pretty good cover there. Yes, there's absolutely a little bit of an opening here, a little bit of an opening here, but it's a mostly covered lane for them to rotate through. And then we get into third point. And third point is a little different. What we're looking at with third point is we have the defenders. We obviously have the defenders on ladder. Well, let's actually show our lanes first. So here we are, third point. We're going to go ahead and do our default lane. That's going to be the default lane. That's what our cart takes. This is the secondary and probably most important lane on this point right here. We'll just go that through a little bit, sure. And then we have a broken third lane here where we can go, hey, we can come in through here. We can go like this. That's broken. Only some heroes can jump up that. And then we've got the ability to go deep in here, go around, threaten in these directions, whatever we would like to do there. Okay, we have, of course, missed out that underneath there is another path here. You can go under. That's what I'm trying to signal here. And you can peek out in those spots if you go under. And that is somewhat relevant, something in the map that we certainly don't want to forget exists. There's also a path down here to connect like this. This honestly is this is spawn for defenders when defenders are defending second. It's really not actually that relevant to attackers, except maybe to hop down here to avoid a diva bomb or some other ult, something along those lines. Getting from here to here really isn't that relevant. Okay, so those are our lanes. And as we go through here, we see that defenders are going to get to preset with high ground, and while this is definitely relevant high ground, it's hard to fight a team always that has high ground, this isn't the strongest high ground in the world. This is a little bit shallow, this is very shallow, this is a bit shallow. There's not room to go, oh, I'm getting shot, let me just back up. Nope, even if you back up and crouch, you're still going to get hit. I'm getting shot, let me back up and crouch. So it's still high ground, but it's not high ground that provides cover because you're still visible to the attacking team. You can sort of make it work here. It's not amazing. This spot is a little bit better, but then the bridge sort of gets in your way in that you have a little bit of cover available to you. So this high ground exists. It's pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful for both attackers and defenders, but it's not the most powerful of powerful high grounds in the game. So what do we need to think about with this high ground? Well, we need to think about the fact that the attackers are going to try to access it. They're going to try to access it through here. This is a staircase that absolutely sucks to push through. Like, oh, you have to push through this narrow staircase, face some Junkrat, face some Maywalls, face some self-destructs, face, a full-on brawl happening in here. This sucks to push through, but the defenders usually can't 6-stack people up here to go, well, we're just going to hold this because, yeah, that's going to work for us, because then they just surrender the whole rest of the map, and like we said, this doesn't really give them enough angle up here. They need more of the map than that. So usually what will end up happening is you'll see what you see on ladder, which would be, hey, there's some people here, some people up here and here, maybe someone over here. Okay, fine. They've got some things like that. This isn't really the strongest hold in the world. That is what you'll tend to see on ladder. You will sometimes see teams that are a little more adept understand that if they control this, it makes it really hard for the attackers to get the pathing they want. They certainly can't come through that door. If they come through that, okay, well, we can rotate down and go punish them in here. Sure, they could come through there, but that's a broken lane, as we've talked about, doesn't let every hero circle around. But it's still not the best in the world because you're giving up your own high ground control if you're the defenders and you control here, because you can't really tuck someone back there. They can't influence this fight. That's not really something we want. If you're a full ball comp, maybe you do that anyways. But this isn't the most powerful thing in the world, and it's pretty easy for a flanker to come through mid, use the cart as something to break line of sight, push the cart along, force the defending team to move, and then the attacking team potentially gets to go, okay, now that the defending team has moved, we'll climb in, and now we have angles, we have a surround on you. So that's sort of what you're looking at. The defenders are likely to start with high ground. If not, they'll take the hold there. There's certainly ways to break both of those. We talked about the cart there. We talked about if they sort of do this split hold here, you just rotate the majority of your team as an attacker up through here, get control of this, and now you have this because the defenders can't reinforce it all that well because their rotation up there is every bit as slow as yours is. So that's generally what you're looking at. The last thing that you sort of want to know about this point, obviously the power positions, the high ground to a limited degree, particularly over here for defenders. And then the other thing to really think about in terms of real difference makers on point 3 is going to be, hey, it's a limited hero cast that can do it, but you send a Hanzo, an Ashe, a Widowmaker from attackers or defenders side, that's a lot of influence. If you're an attacker and you attack into here from here as your team is pushing, or if you're a defender and you attack into here as your team is getting pushed or as your team is pushing, that's a lot of influence. So this isn't, hey, we're sending a Tracer or Genji over here. This is we're sending someone with real poke power down one of these lanes, and it's a huge swing on the opponents here. So these are pretty powerful. There's obviously more you can do with looping Pharos around back here, doing things like this, but in this modern era, those tend to get snuffed out, punished, that sort of thing. So that's really what I wanted to cover in terms of how this one works. Let me just check my real quick. Yeah, that tends to be how this one works. Again, if you're thinking about attacking this point, make sure or attacking this map in general, make sure you're thinking about that high ground. You're going to clear it on first. You're going to go ahead and take the right side on second, and then you're going to go through and generally attack through right side as well on third. If you're defending this point, it's really about not letting them get that high ground. You can do some brutal holds on the back half of first with that choke. You can absolutely do that if you don't let the team in and you watch the backdoor route there. You can absolutely on second go, we control both high grounds. There's nothing you can do. If you watch Church on the first half of second, you're going to be in good shoes. And then for third, you can do that close hold on as a defender there if you like. You can go ahead and make sure you control the high ground. Just be aware of they're going to try to pick you apart with those angles, with that cart there. And the third lane is really limited in the cast that can use it here. So that's really what I wanted to cover. I will catch up on chat now, but if people have questions, you can throw them up in there. If you are looking to get coaching yourself, you can, of course, join my Discord. Or if you just have another map yourself that you're like, hey, I want this to be the next map covered, or better yet, everyone, please go ahead and put the next map that you'd like covered in the comments below. Go ahead and put a comment of, oh, you really want Oasis to be covered next, or you really want Horizon Lunar Colony to be covered next. Yeah, I know some of you do. Or you really want King's Row to be covered next. Whatever you want, go ahead and drop that down there in the comments. And then we have a super chat coming in from Sheldon Kreger for $5. Thanks for another quality map guide. You are absolutely welcome for that, Sheldon, and I appreciate that $5 super chat. Thank you. Okay, so let's catch up on chat here. Okay, so let's catch up on chat here. Blah says this isn't Horizon Lunar Colony or Paris. I know. Maybe we'll get to them. There weren't enough requests to overwhelm my lack of desire to do the maps that aren't actually in the map pool. What about defending from left room? Defending from left room, I assume that was back on first point based on the timestamp. So we're going to work our way over to left room. We're going to work our way over to left room. I'm pressing the speed up button. As you can see, it is being so effective. And I assume what you're referring to for defending it out of left room would be a team defending out of left room. There's two ways you can do that. You can be a brawl team, like a brawl team that's basically six stacked in this left room and going, we're going to touch the cart, not let it move. We're going to touch the cart, not let it move. And if any sort of dive or poke team tries to push the cart too closely, we might run over them with our Lucio speed, try to eliminate them, and run back into our room for cover so that we can't get poked down, can't get picked apart by a dive. That's absolutely an option for a defending brawl team. If you're attacking into that, you're going to swing yourself out here with a little bit of threat power. You're going to go ahead and put some sort of flanker back here, and you're going to try to soften them up as best you can. But yes, there are valid reasons to run a defensive brawl comp on Dorado. You've got a potential hold in red room there. You've got a potential hold here. The problems that you run into is your rotation onto second point attack. Well, let me rephrase that. The problem that you run into is it's such a dominant high ground map, and you can start initially and take your defense here and be like, yeah, we're doing this, and then we're going to drop and try to wipe the team. You're not getting amazing poke value from up here, but you're getting some. Then you drop and potentially try to wipe out the team. But if they get away, if you drop to try to push them away and they get away, then you don't have your good high ground anymore. They're going to go around to take it and wake you out. Or even if you drop and do win the fight, it takes you forever to retake that high ground, which is a little bit of a problem for brawl teams on this map, given how favorable it is on second. But yeah, you can absolutely, with a brawl team, defend that. The other thing is defenders, as you probably caught on, we're generally going to put our poke aspects either over there or up here. We're going to have a tank playing a little more forward. And what does that mean about flankers? Well, it means flankers could control this lane. Ultimately, they're probably just going to slowly lose this lane if we're talking, say, a dive mirror or a balls end type mirror to the core that is going to push this, but that's okay. Or divers could circle around behind, and that's perfectly valid, and mess with teams, pepper teams, not let them have a poke aspect right here, because they could send themselves in through here. New map guide, very nice. Thank you, Sheldon. It's important to get all the pinatas on this map. That does help. It increases your win percent. It doesn't increase your win percent. Adam says he's rich. Okay. Adam says temporal sucks. Nothing new there. Second point is some of the strongest high ground in the game, in my opinion. It's nearly impossible to get through without clearing both sides. I've lost so many games from Soldier standing there uncontested. Absolutely. Second point high ground is incredibly powerful. If the defenders control both sides, do not expect to win. You can sometimes win as the attackers by taking one side and then using your poke aspects to beat out the other side and then pushing the point in. But if you can get control of both sides, well, then you win. That's how Overwatch works. Yes, Spylo's not the only one who would call that a kill box. I'm going to limit the number of times I say that in this video because YouTube isn't friendly towards mature concepts, we'll say. But yes, this thing here would very much be that. Usually that term gets used more with dive type stuff than poke type stuff, but it would still apply in this situation. Yes. Can't win if the pinatas survive. You tell your team to go high ground and then they don't. So that's okay. Like, remember, the opposing team isn't going to play perfectly, and even one person understanding this can make a difference. These map guides are not strictly for professional play. Some professional players could use this, but these map guides are not strictly for professional play. They should help in your ladder games as well. You should be able to think, wait, I now know the power of the backdoor short flank on third. I now know that I can hang back a Zen and use this as an archway. I now know that I can play from here or over there, and it's pretty good as a poke DPS. I now know that my team is simply very unlikely to ever break that if we're attacking. So even if I'm by myself, if I go up over here as Hanzo, Soldier, Hammond, Diva, whatever, I potentially need to win this, or at least drive them back a little, at least give them a cross threat so that my team has a prayer of winning this. Even if my team is dive and can go vertical with their monkey, with their diva, with their Genji, it's still going to help if I figure out as Zen, and hopefully my Brig will follow me, that I should go threaten from over here. Like, that makes a difference. even if just you understand it, you can help break some of this stuff. What about recontesting each point as defense? This map often feels like if you lose one fight on any point, you've lost the whole section. Generally, that's because some of the better places to hold on defense require you to let them get pretty deep. And what I'd say there is the answer to that is you don't have to let them get super deep on this. You can, again, take an early fight if you get a massive poke advantage because you've taken your angles here. But like, yes, if they win, if you don't consider your first fight to be until here, yes, there's not much map left, and you're going to do a late recontest to try to stop it potentially as your third fight, as your second fight, whatever you want to think it of, and this is going to be a bad one. It just is because you let them have a lot of space in order to get this. But with the number of full holds that have happened here with like Widow Junkrat compositions for defenders, still generally going to be worth it. That said, you can absolutely take early fights if you soften up, if they don't come clear you, that sort of thing. Attackers, come clear this. Second point really shouldn't have that issue. Your first fight is generally plenty strong enough. Your first fight is generally plenty strong enough or plenty early enough that you should get a second fight, and you can push out through there, through there, through there, and go, okay, now we're doing this just fine. You shouldn't really have an issue if we don't get a second fight if you took your fight early. And then on third point, that only really happens because defenders like to do their first hold around here, and you're not getting a ton out of that. Like, you can do that if you want, but you can also do this close hold. And if you do this close hold and don't really let that cart move too much, you'll definitely get a second fight. As opposed to just a first fight here, and then if they win it, second fight on top of your spawn with the cart meters from finishing. Anton says, thanks for covering Watchpoint, Gibbons, and Dorado. Okay. Well, we haven't done Gibraltar yet in this one, actually. Okay, Dan the Moop Man says, hey Temporal, I've recently started watching your stuff after making it into my uni's Overwatch team, and I was wondering, when do you stream like this? Is there a schedule? No, there is not a strict schedule. I am generally doing Overwatch coaching, content, etc. Something of the like between about 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific most days, but I have schedules where I'm coaching off the air. I have schedules where I'm doing teamwork. I have schedules where I'm taking a break in the middle of the day to do something else. That's roughly what you're looking at, but I'm around, and you can schedule with me if you'd like a session either for yourself or for your team. You'd have to tell me what team you're on because if you're, depending on the level of your team, if you're like a top 4 team, I may say, no, I'm probably not going to be willing to do coaching for you unless you actually were like, no, we full on want to hire you to actually be our coach. But if you're below the top 32 teams or whatever, I absolutely will just be like, yep, and we'll charge a rate and we'll figure it out from there. Okay, I will try to drop down from high ground as Tracer and Recall. Thank you, Temporal. Okay. Even though your teammates are land lubbers. Sheldon hits you. I'm sorry, Adam. At Temporal, how do you remove common Hanzo Widow spots? Well, I'd say the biggest one was the common Widow Hanzo spots. We can go back here, and this Widow Hanzo spot right here, I can use a Widow for it, that's fine. This one right here, you remove by sending specific heroes through this backdoor path. The other option is to try to send people through here, get them around, and then even a Tracer from back here can poke her, something from back here, a ball from back here, etc. But you either use this shortcut path, you flip your core to get them close, where she has to rotate away because you got your core close and she doesn't want to be close to your core that potentially has either DM or a Sigma shield or even a Brig shield to shoot through, something like that. So send a flanker around, get your core through here, or shortcut someone through the secret flank here. That's probably the most common Widow spot. The next most common poke spot that you're worried about would be this one right here. We covered that as well. That's going to be with effectively this one that has pretty good cover sightline wise against this, and then someone can go through here and remove her pretty well. And then, third point, not that relevant. you have pretty good access to it. Like, yeah, there's this one that we can deal with. This isn't hard to remove. You just have to not get caught off guard by it. The other one would be back here, and you're looking to remove that anyways with a pretty standard, hey, we wanted to push this way in the first place. You're thinking Cager for the watch point. Yep, all good. Oh, you're thinking Cager sourcing me. Well, yeah, I did get included there. How to counter first point Bastion team quickly? Easy. Easy. This is not a good Bastion map. This is not a good Bastion map at all. What's going to happen is Bastion is going to ride the cart to here, and then Bastion is going to get fallen down on. Bastion has no sightlines on a defending team as he tries to cross on the cart under this archway, so you just fall on him, you drop on him, you do whatever from multiple directions, and you're on top of him. He's a poke hero who had no sightline distance to do poke work on you, and you show up on top of him and his team that is designed around protecting him while he does poke work at close range, and he gets crushed. A dive team can do this, a brawl team can do this, even a poke team will happily fight him at relatively close range and beat him because, oh hey, you had that free high ground to drop on him from. If he makes it through, well, okay, now you get to do the same thing, and he's your Bastion on cart, and you just take your guys and go, okay, well, even if we're a brawl comp, which Bastion should be very good against, we just wait till you're there, and then we drop on you and we wipe you out. Bastion is not terribly threatening on this map because there's powerful high ground. And Bastion tends not to do well as cart Bastion when there is a... what am I trying to say? When there is high ground for people to just drop on him for free from. For defenders, last point, how to counter dive comps. How to counter dive comps for last point. I don't know that I'd say that you're specifically going to be like, this is the counter to dive comps here. You can go, we're going to control this area right here, like we talked about, this area right here, and go, hey, you can't really get in. They're going to try to sneak the cart through, make you run to contest, make you run back, make you run to contest, slide their backline in here to do work. They're going to do that sort of thing. There's not really a hard counter to them. It's a pretty open point once you get to here. The other option is, again, you have poke aspects back here and you don't let them through to get to them, but I wouldn't say you have like the best options in the world for just not letting your opponents play dive, for just saying no, you're not allowed to play dive, at least not with how things are currently balanced. You can put strong poke here, protect it like a Zen Brig type thing here. You could do that, and then that becomes a long sight line, and then you're ready to pre-challenge this with something like, okay, now we've also got maybe you've got a Diva here and then a Rhine here and something like that, where it's not easy for dive to get in. But no, I don't think there's some like hard shutdown for dive on this point that you can think about. You're still salty about the Mercy from your review earlier? Okay. Okay. I meant how for attackers to counter... Okay. Bell says, I meant how to attackers counter the defender's high ground bastion. It normally costs a lot of time to remove it. How do attackers remove the defender's high ground bastion? Oh, here? Got it. Okay, so if you're talking a high ground bastion right here, he's actually pretty accessible, and I will go back to show you that. Ideally, I'd have had a preset to move me just to jump back to first point. I don't. I'm sorry. We're going back here real quick. So we look here, and if you're worried about a bastion here, he's sort of got an ability to threaten that, not really. He can kind of threaten that, but you can do that rotation. You see how that far rotation, there's a rotation out over here that he's not really contesting at all. Of you go, we're going to rotate our team out here, down through here, up through here, up here. He could try to hold us there if he wants, but we're going to then come up here. And then from here, we have a reasonably short rotation on him, and we have a reasonably short rotation on him as someone else who also went underground out of his sight line comes up these stairs, because again, I'm just going to show you guys this route real quick exists. I suspect most of you know it. Cool. As he's doing that, you're going to come out here and you're going to go, okay, he's getting hit from two different sides. He didn't really have long sight lines to preview on them. He doesn't have work. He can't really do work, and he just gets overwhelmed. He could also position here, but very similar thing. He actually doesn't have that great of sight lines on people until they get themselves, like, they can hug pretty tightly right here and then come through here, or drop back here and loop through like this, while you have flankers, again, go through up here and be ready and hit him from behind. Xelix asks, if attacking Reaper is TPing around high ground and dropping on healers, is it better to contest his height as soldier or play McCree on my healers? If attacking Reaper is TPing around high ground and dropping on healers, is it better to contest his height as soldier or play McCree on my healers? It's better to play on the high ground and not let him do that. Like, if he shows up right next to you, you can obviously flash and deal with him as McCree. Potentially, you've got to play around the Wraith. If he TP's near you as soldier, you just sprint back a little bit and then potentially fight him like that. Not a big deal. And if he's dropping on your soldiers, you're just going to crush him from above. Like, if you have the high ground and he drops off the high ground, you're just going to then crush him from above as either one of those. Okay, I will give you guys another minute or two to get something in there in terms of questions, anything like that. Then we will go ahead and wrap this one up if there's nothing more in terms of questions. Again, if you guys are enjoying the content, please do drop a like. Feel free to subscribe if you've not already done so. And then we will be going through more maps. So drop a comment on which map you would like us to see cover next. Which maps you would like us to cover next. Words are hard. Okay, that's going to do it for now, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks, Tempora.